Thumbs up the video if this deck looks like an absolute mess.
Seahorse radish, the gnarliest stuff in the ocean.
Oh, hold on! I've got a jar of toenail clippings in my office.
Oops, I dropped it in the toilet.
Well, fish it out, and I'll dry it with me gym socks. Why, that's the most diabolical Krabby Patty ever spawned.
I call it the Nasty Patty.
I built today's deck in order to beat Lugia V-Star decks, Mew VMAX decks, and even Lost Zone decks. I may have succeeded because, unfortunately, I don't have any great Lugia V-Star matchup gameplay for this video today, because when I play down some of the key cards, my opponents are scooping. And I even am having multiple Lost Zone deck opponents scooping as well when I bench one of the cards for that matchup. Can this deck beat anything but Lugia, Mew, and Lost Zone decks? I don't have that answer for you, but it can beat those decks. Today's video is sponsored by Elestrals, a brand new trading card game currently available on Kickstarter. Before you fast forward because you think this is another generic ad for a boring game, let me stop you there. Elestrals TCG is a passion project that encompasses every good part of a trading card game: collecting, deck building, and gameplay. And so far, it has surpassed my expectations in those categories. And I'm giving Elestrals TCG my personal stamp of approval, judging by everything I've seen so far, including the quality of easy-to-learn yet strategic game design, very customizable decks to meet your playstyle, a transparent line of communication from the creator of the game to the community, and memorable characters and art, like Sluggle, Clovey, and Sonicor, to name a few. The Kickstarter has over 4,000 backers and close to $1 million funded towards the project, and you can join too until December 9th. There are backing options as low as $25 US, which include a starter deck, as well as several extra rewards, which continue to be unlocked as the Kickstarter reaches new goals. Additionally, Elestrals TCG has already begun developing an online TCG app, which will be available in beta access for all Kickstarter backers in 2023. You can use my Kickstarter link below to check it all out, and I highly encourage checking out the tutorials, videos, and more at Elestrals.com. Thanks again to Elestrals for sponsoring today's video. I began this deck with the core of 4 Applin to evolve into either Flapple or Appleton. Appleton has thick mucus.
Damn, boy, he's thick!
That does 70 damage for each special energy on your opponent's Pokemon, and Flapple has acidic mucus that does 50 for each of your opponent's Pokemon in play that has an ability. These two Pokemon both attack for colorless energy for the attacks we'll be using for this deck, so that allowed me to be pretty free with what kinds of energy I wanted to play in this deck. Beedrill's Persist Sting is going to take care of any deck relying on special energy when Appleton and Flapple don't take care of that, so the Persist Sting just instantly knocks out something like a Mew VMAX or a Lugia V-Star, even if Appleton or Flapple would not. Beedrill's a stage 2 Pokemon, but it's quite easy to get into play thanks to Single Strike Mustard, which you can only play if it's the last card in your hand, but it puts a Single Strike Pokemon directly from your deck onto your bench, and then you get to draw 5 cards. The remaining issue would be all of the Comfy Lost Zone decks, especially the single prize variants. How am I ever going to beat those with these very weak single prize Pokemon? They can take multi-prize knockout turns with Sableye and Greninja and Kyogre, so I was thinking what to do about that. And it occurred to me that Lost Zone decks really hate a Hisuian Goodra V-Star with a big parasol on it, so why not just toss some of that into this deck as well? And here we go. Starting out game 1 against a deck playing Sobble, that's really all the information we have here off the start. So we'll go ahead and get a Mew into play so we can start getting some more item cards, and typically against a Sobble deck they're not going to knock us out on turn 1, so I felt that Balloon on the active was pretty safe. And they bench a Jolteon V, so we're actually going to be playing against a Jolteon VMAX deck here, which I haven't played against in months probably. So they bench 2 Jolteon Vs, and they'll also use a Keep Calling for a couple more Sobbles and pass. So we don't really have anything great to do against that. We are going to be a more reactive deck and countering specific things. But we're able to empty our hand, get a Beedrill down, and find the Hisuian Heavy Ball to grab our Hisuian Goodra V, which is really, really important because Jolteon doesn't do a lot of damage, so Hisuian Goodra V-Star is going to be really good at reducing that already low damage output and also healing itself with its V-Star ability. You're just kind of deciding what I should do. Should I get an extra Mew down? Should I look for more cards? So on and so forth. We'll go ahead and grab an extra Scoop Up Net and then pass. So really didn't get much out of the extra Mew, but we do have a Hisuian Goodra V on the bench with 1 energy, and if they take a knockout, that can quickly turn into 3 energies if we can find a Raihan and some more energy. Also note that if they are using speed lightning energies, that our Beedrill will be able to take advantage of that. Interestingly enough, they're playing Radiant Alakazam, which is pretty cool. They'll be able to move damage from our active Pokemon to one of our bench Pokemon. Actually, it's from any Pokemon to any Pokemon, I believe, but a lot of times they'll be moving it from active to bench. And so Headbutt Tantrum on the Goodra so that they can apply some damage with the Jolteon. And I actually top deck a Raihan, which is incredible. We'll go grab a Scoop Up Net with the Mew and evolve this Hisuian Goodra V-Star. I'm going to get that energy back and use Greninja to draw 2 cards, and then that energy is just right back in there for Raihan, of course. And it looks like I might bench this Mew and try to get some more items prior to the Raihan. See what I can get out of the Mew before I go search for a specific card. So I don't really get anything great, just a Pokegear. So we'll take that and then Raihan. So maybe that can help us find a supporter for next turn, since I don't have any usable supporters in my hand right now, unless I get to empty my hand and then use Single Strike Mustard. But we'll go ahead and use Rolling Iron for a nice 200 damage, and then damage done to my Goodra next turn is reduced by 80. So right now, Jolteon is only hitting my Goodra for 20 damage a turn. We're going to really be able to wall out this deck really nicely with the Goodra, and Goodra actually covers up the weaknesses of this kind of single prize deck so well, because this deck would just pretty much fold to a Jolteon deck like this, or any kind of damage spread deck, as long as they don't put special energies and leave them for my Beedrill. But the Hisuian Goodra is able to make the bench damage and the damage spread pretty irrelevant, because they're not doing enough damage at one time to my Goodra, and I can eventually leave myself with 0 Pokemon, or a very small amount of Pokemon on my bench. So they'll just be doing like 20 damage a turn in my active. So we go ahead and Pokegear, no supporters, but we will Moisture Star to fully heal my Goodra, and then take a knockout on the Jolteon VMAX for 3 prize cards. They'll establish their next Jolteon VMAX here, so they will have an attacker for this turn, and they can probably try to knock out my Beedrill, because they have Radiant Alakazam, they have the Quick Shooting Inteleon. There's a Speed Lightning on that Jolteon on the bench. Okay, so they're going to Quick Shoot active and knock out the Mew, leave my Beedrill alone, which could be dangerous for them. I have a Marnie for turn, and I don't really have anything that I want to play down to my bench out of this hand. In case they're playing Echoing Horn, though, I do shuffle those Applins back, because they only have 40 HP. So I hit into this Jolteon, and remember, every time I'm smacking them with Rolling Iron, it's reducing the damage done to my Goodra by 80 for the next turn. They are going to fully heal this Pokemon with Cheryl, but they attach a Speed Lightning. I have Training Cord out. That means I can just retreat and knock out with Beedrill. And that's GG. Alright, here we have a Mulligan hand. And we end up starting with a Mew from Celebrations. That's the best starter in the deck, and our opponent flips over a Comfey, so this is going to be some sort of Lost Zone deck. We'll go ahead and Mew for a level ball and get out another Mew. Goodra V is in the deck, and Goodra V is going to be what we really want. But I will get an Applin down and attach to Mew and pass. So no turn 1 Goodra V. But that's fine. We have the rest of the game to get the Goodra V onto the board. The opponent has a pretty good turn 1 here. They have a huge hand. They have a lot of cards in the Lost Zone. They'll probably end up knocking out our Mew with a Cramorant, if I had to guess. They're still looking for a Cramorant, though, I think. And they just pass, so they don't get that turn 1 knockout, which is pretty rough for them. I get the Ultra Ball with Mew's ability, so I can go ahead and get the Goodra V down if I really want to this turn. I have a little bit of a hard decision to make about Ultra Ball, but I can just get rid of a Rod and a Mew because our goal is to just have this Goodra survive for the whole game. And luckily I have Raihan in my hand, so as long as they take a knockout next turn, we're fine. They do have a lot in the Lost Zone, so I think they can start using Sableye here on their turn 2, which is pretty cool. They can knock out Applin and Mew, or they can knock out one of them and put more damage on the Goodra. So here is Lost Mine from the Sableye, and they're going to knock out the active Applin and put 80 on the Hisuian Goodra V. So I top deck an energy, that is superb, but we also have a big Parasol, even better. So we're going to go ahead and Raihan and also get a Marnie for next turn. And I have big Parasol on that Goodra, and it's taking 80 less damage from attacks. So this is just really, really beautiful for me. This is exactly how you want to set up the Goodra line against Lost Box, and yeah, everything's working according to plan. So there's Escape Rope. That'll remove the damage mitigation effect that I have on my Goodra V-Star from Rolling Iron, but I can just promote this and fully heal the Goodra with Moisture Star, and then I can also Marnie their hand. They had like a dozen plus cards in their hand, and this is typically where the Lost Box decks are scooping. We'll go ahead, Rolling Iron, take out the Greninja, Flower Select, Walrus's Experiment, and there's the scoop. GG, on to the next one. So we're queued up here against another comfy Lost Zone deck, and I start with Applin. I don't have a way yet to get the Hisuian Goodra V down. So I have Mew with Level Ball. There's the Ultra Ball. I already attached for turn, unfortunately, so I won't be getting an energy attached to my Hisuian Goodra V, but I can at least search out the energy for next turn. They're setting up a Snorlax, since that's a pretty high damage output for them. That might help them get through the Goodra. Here we go with Raihaning and energy down. And then I won't be able to attack with Rolling Iron this turn, but I can set it up and hold that Marnie for next turn. And they can just spit innocently at this Applin, since I didn't even knock out their Cramorant. They're used to the Cramorant getting knocked out. They're spit innocently, so they take their second prize. And I'm going to leave my bench empty, use Marnie, and we got an energy. Now we can roll some Iron until the end of time. I don't have a big Parasol, however, so they can get through me with Lost Mine for 12 damage counters at a time. I think it's really cool how this deck has different modes. Like, you can try to just aggressively dump your hand to use Single Strike Mustard to get Beedrill into play in those matchups. You can flood your board with Applins and then respond with either Flapple or Appleton, whichever you need. And then against decks with low to mid damage output, you can just mitigate 80 damage a turn and then fully heal your Goodra and do it all over again. So really happy with how this deck came out. It did exactly what I wanted it to do. As we see, I'm taking down a Lost Box pretty handedly here. So I didn't fully heal because it does 80 less damage, so the Snorlax can only do a maximum of 100 this turn. 130 with a Choice Belt, which still wouldn't knock me out. So I'll let them go ahead and Thumping Snore me. I take some damage, I'll fully heal with Moisture Star, take a knockout, and just rinse and repeat here. And the opponent will scoop here in a second, as they typically do when they realize they're not getting through this Goodra. GG.